Good evening. Welcome to Republic TV. This is Versus. I'm Ridhumanan Bhardwaj. Today we're going to be talking about an extremely pertinent issue. Once again, we're going to see open battle lines drawn between the judiciary and the government. This time, after certain people in the government have criticized the functioning of the judiciary and said vacation should not be taken by them, it's too much of a waste of time. What really needs to be understood by both the sides is what's happening when the judiciary works, how many hours they work for, how many vacations are taken, how many judgments are written, the backload on one of the pillars of the judiciary, on pillars of the democracy, and then really understand what needs to be done. I'm speaking, of course, about Supreme Court Judge Justice Dipankar Datta's comment castigating the government after certain people in the government criticized the functioning of the judiciary, the vacations that were taken by the judiciary, and tried to say this is not a system that works, it's an old medieval system. First, we're going to take a look on the verses at our guests and try and get an understanding on an introduction on what really needs to be done here. I'm going to first go across. We have Swapnil Kothari and Kapil Madan, both lawyers, joining us on this. Kapil, I want to come to you first. We've seen the castigation and the criticism that's been there in this case against the judiciary, but Supreme Court Judge Justice Datta has clearly stated that these comments that judges work for a very few hours are incorrect. They should not be there. Judges do not take vacation all the time. How do you reply to this?
So, Rhythm, I do agree with what Justice Dipankar Datta has observed, because it is very common for us to see that the judges start their day at 10 a.m. in the morning, and then they hear matters till 4, and after that they have to record in all the matters. In fact, sometimes they have about 80 to 90 matters listed in a day. They have to hear those matters, then they have to pass daily orders, and thereafter they have to write judgments. Then again, they have to do a pre-briefing of the matters that are going to be listed the next day. So technically, I mean, if you ask anyone who has seen the system very closely, he would tell you that the judges hardly get any time, any personal time, and they most of the time work on weekends, they work on vacations, and most of the vacations are used to write judgments in important and critical matters. And in this context, if someone who holds a very high office in the government of India, if he passes this kind of a remark, then I would say that this is a reckless comment. And I would also quote Mr. Tushar Mehta, who also mentioned and referred to this as an ignorant comment and requested the court to ignore this comment.
I completely agree with you when you say that even the Solicitor General has made such comments, Kapil. Swapnil Kothari, surprised that you're actually on the other side, but what makes you agree that less vacations need to be taken by lawyers and by judges, you yourself being a prominent advocate?
Well, I don't categorically state that less vacations need to be taken or less holidays need to be taken. My view is more that more expeditious disposal of cases needs to be done. The time that is given to lawyers to argue out their issues or points is a little too much. So I think there has to be a limitation on time. That way, the vacations will be there in place, which everybody needs as human beings, including the judges who work extremely hard, no question about it, undoubtedly, at all rungs of the judiciary. My only point, Rhythm, is that, as Tushar Mehta pointed out, that the statement has to be taken as a statement which is coming from an outsider who's not somebody who's acquainted with the judiciary day in, day out, the way you are, the way I am, the way Kapil is. So the thing is that they do not know as to what goes into being a judge and how much hard work that needs to be done. So my take would be that it has to be ignored. The comment has to be ignored because it is made by someone who's not fully aware, just as somebody from our fraternity would make a comment that economists hardly do anything.
Swapnil, as I respect what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from, for people who don't understand how the judiciary works, to say that this is happening when this is something that is the most, in fact, I have some statistics for me that this is the most underfunded branch, and this needs to be seen in the judiciary, how it's there. In the Indian Justice Report also of 2022, it said India has 19 judges per 10 lakhs As for salaries, a moderately successful lawyer, Kapil and Swapnil, earns more than a judge of the highest court. So imagine the sacrifice, Kapil, that's being made by the Supreme Court judges, the amount of hours they are putting in. Even in vacations, there are 3 benches in the Supreme Court that are also functioning. The backload of cases is immense. There are 33 judges. The number of cases they are disposing of is more than 50,000 cases. Kapil, if you actually to see internationally, the highest courts in Britain or in US are not handling the number of cases that Indian courts are.
That is correct. That is correct. And I would just say, I mean, you have very rightly pointed out that if someone takes the judgeship of a high court or a Supreme Court, I mean, it is given that he must be a, successful lawyer. And when he accepts that position, he sacrifices his, private practice where a person does, very, very well. We have such examples where several judges have left their lucrative practice, and as a means to serve the nation, they have taken the judgeship. So I totally agree with you. And I must also say here, it takes a great amount of mental toll on the judges also, because that kind of workload when they are continuously working almost the entire day, almost on the weekends. I mean, not only the judges, I think their family also sometimes suffers because they also don't get time with their family member. So I think we must be very careful. I think we must be appreciative of the fact the way our judiciary is working. And you made a very, very important statistical reference where you said we have about 19 judges per 10 lakh people. I mean, this is huge. And the kind of workload the judges have, I mean, this is, a very, very, very difficult post to handle.
Swapnil, I want to ask you here, we all know that the country's largest litigation before the courts is the government. Close to 50% of the backload of the cases is of the government. And yet we are seeing it is the government that is coming forward, the government that is castigating and questioning the holidays of the judiciary.
Rhythm, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. The first thing, what I was trying to make the point was that it comes from a person who's not acquainted with the judiciary. It has to be taken at face value. It cannot be considered as reckless. It should be taken more or less at face value in the sense that, okay, fair enough, that's one point that you're making. Let's try to see what best we can do in the scenario. We are only 19 judges per 1 lakh. So let's try to reduce the time for arguments. Let's try to tell the government that, okay, first reduce your own litigation. Don't bring them before us. That is something which the judiciary can try to do. That's one way of saying one thing. The other way of looking at it is that also, okay, fair enough. It's like if anybody from our fraternity were to make a comment, Rhythm, that economists are ivory tower philosophers. They do not know anything. They're not, divorced from reality. So do you think the economists should take an umbrage at that fact? No, sorry. They should just say that, okay, fine, this is coming from somebody who are more practical, who are, doing day in, day out work, as opposed to economists who write essays and who are more out of think tanks. But that's the way you have to take it. It doesn't have to take it. The judiciary should not be taking it as an affront on it. Yes, you can make a comment, which Justice Datta has done. Absolutely right in what he's saying, because he's only saying that, well, this is what we do. And he's just defending the stance, and which I completely agree with in that sense. There is no question about it. But all I'm trying to say is, Rhythm, that yes, you do put the government back to the wall and say that, look, don't come with these frivolous litigations. Don't come out with everything and anything, because you have some lawyers in your backyard who can do this day in, day out without much money, or even if there is money involved, you are using the taxpayers' money. That is one way of it. The other way is that, okay, this is a scenario. We are faced with a government litigation. We are faced with 19 judges for 1 lakh people. We are short-staffed. We don't have that many judges. So then what do we do? As the judiciary, we have to cater to 140 crore people. So what do we do? Let's reduce the time for arguments. That's one of the things, that this is something which has been taken by the judiciary and has been debated at the highest levels. But I would like to see more of it actually coming into action. That, okay, this is the time, this far and no further adjournments. That's it. If you're there, you're there. Otherwise, I'm passing an ex parte order. So that way you will at least reduce some of the backlog. So I would rather look at the fact, I would not go on the vacations part. That is something, that is some statement which has been made by him. He's entitled to make. It's a free country. And we are entitled to respond to that in the way that we want to.
I ask you, Swapnil, I ask you, Kapil's also raising his hand. Are the Supreme Court judges going on too many vacations?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree. That's not true. They're entitled to whatever they're doing.
Kapil is also raising his hand. Kapil? Kapil, if you could unmute yourself as we can't hear you. Yes. Okay, we're just going to try and get Kapil in a minute. My director is going to have a word with him. Swapnil, the other question I want to ask you, we all know, and yes, I understand that less arguments need to be there. Absolutely, sometimes there are lawyers who just go on and on. But this is not about just one person. We've seen even in the past, the government has questioned the judiciary. The government has questioned the collegium system. So if we were to broaden this particular debate as this is happening, we also tell our viewers there is lack of sufficient funding to the judiciary, which is often said. The government cases also involve cases of the common man. They involve entitlement, licenses, pensions, employment contracts, much more, Swapnil. So when we say all this, it's also the executive that needs to be kept in check, especially with the exercise of judicial review.
Absolutely. Rhythm, I completely agree with you. First of all, you need to fund the courts, increase the salary of their judges so that judgeship is becoming more attractive. It becomes more attractive. So people take that into account. And, there are more judges who are willing to come up and take it over. The vacations are absolutely apt because, as I keep telling you, that the judges start their work, I think, from 8 a.m. in the morning. They may come in the court at about 10:30 a.m., but I think they work even beyond 5 p.m. Some judges have gone up to work till 2 a.m. in the midnight here in the Bombay High Court. I'm fully aware of that as well. So that is not my short point is, Rhythm, that you will notice that there are some cases, I don't want to name them because I don't remember them on the top of their head, but I believe some of those very important cases, they've gone on 7 days, 8 days, 10 days arguments. Why do you need so many arguments? Why do you need such a long period of time?
Swapnil, that's point is made, but even now that you're also suggesting, similarly like Kapil is, that vacations is not the point. Kapil, you wanted to make a point which I'll let you make, and I also want to ask you, the government also needs to understand that in case after case, condonation of delay applications cannot be put before the Supreme Court, and then they have people fielded who try and criticize the judiciary.
So, Radham, I will just take an exception to what Mr. Kothari has said, wherein he said that, we should ignore this statement as it has been made by someone who is ignorant. And I am very sorry, a statement has been made by someone who works at the top offices, with the government, with the central government. And then a person holding that kind of an office should be responsible enough to make, this kind of a, reckless statement. I take a very strong objection to that. And, let us see, this in the entire background. You may recall there was a letter issued by, recently that happened, that was a letter issued by several lawyers who were casting some kind of an aspersion that there is some pressure group who's working, and that letter was endorsed by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister of India. He tweeted that letter. I am sorry, the state government or any central government does not have any business to interfere with the, the way judiciary functions, or to cast any kind of statements or, these kind of reckless remarks which cast any kind of, aspersions about the independence of the judiciary, or anything which, questions their, the time that they spend doing the work that they're doing. So I would just say that a person, it is not a statement made by any common man. It is a statement made by someone who holds a very high office.
Understood, Kapil, but I'm not talking about only the statement. I'm talking about this, Swapnil, I also want to ask you, this general air of discontent between the government and the judiciary. And this is also, as I said earlier, there are fundamental freedoms of citizens involved. When it's at peril, and it's only the Supreme Court that comes out and gives out the law of the land and states what needs to be done. So this particular, ambiguity that we are seeing in this relationship, how is it to proceed further? And I feel Kapil is also right. These comments are a slight dig. It's not only one person, but several people that are coming out and making such statements against the judiciary one day after the other.
Earlier comments that have been made, Rhythm, I have been absolutely loathsome of the same. But this comment which has been made, I view it a little bit more, with a little bit of a facetious air, in the sense that, okay, fine, that's what you're saying, that's your view. And, you're entitled to a view. I wouldn't consider it as an attack on the independence or integrity of the judiciary, or I think efficiency of the judiciary. I think it would more on the fact that, okay, you take less vacations and, that'll help out. But then you have to look at your own backyard also, as I keep saying, that then as government, don't file so many cases. Now, to come at that broader question that you are asking, that whether it's government versus the judiciary, this particular comment, I don't view it more as a part of the government because this man is a more seasoned professional. But as an overall perspective, a little bit of government versus judiciary is helpful. It's healthy in a democracy. But yes, more often than not, statements have been made which has tried to undermine the independence of the judiciary, which has tried to bring down the judiciary in the eyes of the people. Those statements, Rhythm, I'm absolutely against. And those statements were not called for because they were made earlier, I think, by the vice president. I don't exactly recall now who had made them, but those are absolutely loathsome statements, both loathsome and lamentable. So you are absolutely right in that sense, saying that, yes, the government needs to watch itself before it castigates, because the judiciary never seems to castigate the government just offhand, except during the cases where it needs to really do what it needs to do. So there I agree with you. But looking at this statement, Rhythm, if you just look at this statement, when I look at it myself, normally I have a very strong gut instinct and I know where it's coming from. This has got no frills, no, malice, no spite, nothing attached to it. Yes, it becomes reckless in the eyes of some people. It becomes a little loaded. Oh my God, it's coming from somebody who's such a high officer of the government. But when you look at it, it's like me saying, or anybody from the high level of the judiciary saying that, oh, by the way, economists don't do this or do that. And, the RBI governor needs to do this or do that. That doesn't mean that the RBI governor's position has come down or anything of that sort. It's just a comment. It's a freewheeling comment which has been made. Yes, maybe I would have suggested that if you want to make these kind of comments, Mr. Sanyal, please do so in vocally, when Rhythm is questioning you at that time. So your tone, your tenor and everything comes out. Other than that, when you tweet something, Rhythm, it's like a WhatsApp message, which is often misunderstood because there is no tonality attached to it. That's my only point.
I also want to know, it's not only just one comment, but Kapil, several times over, the Supreme Court judges are having this particular discomfort with the way they are being criticized. Is it common practice in parlance today when a judgment is passed and it's not in your favor for anyone, keeping aside these people, keeping aside the government, to criticize the judiciary if the judgment is not in their favor? I remember the EVM judgment in the recent times. You were also on a debate, Kapil, with me on that day. It was being criticized by the petitioners, by their lawyers, by the NGO. Is this common practice? You've also done it several times, Kapil, criticizing a judgment.
Rhythm, I recall that issue very, very clearly. What I said was, in that case also, Supreme Court has given an opportunity to a person who has lost the election to file an application and get 5% EVM inspected to ensure that there was no tampering. So my argument in that debate was limited to that extent. But let me also, give you another context of it. The judges, or the institution, the judiciary that I'm talking about, has always welcomed a constructive criticism. We've seen that, sometimes judges and the judgments and the law also involved. Now, a judgment is passed today, may not be a good law 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. And that's the reason why we see this is very, very common in judiciary, that the judges overrule a previous decision. So criticizing a constructive criticism on the merits of the case is not something, which is casting aspersion on the judiciary itself. And of course, in any given case, you have two views and the court accepts a view. And, if the other view is not accepted, and if the person, gives a constructive criticism, and if he's a critique of a particular judgment on the merits of the case, that is not to be seen in bad light. That's the way any system works and develops. That's the reason why, the law evolves. You may recall, Rhythm, you yourself was a lawyer, and how the basic structure doctrine from A.K. Gopalan's case to Keshav Nanda's
yes, judicial criticism is important. As Swapnil also said, the arguments and the times that are used in the court needs to be reduced. But the big picture also is everyone needs to take a break. It's summer vacation time for the judges.
Absolutely.
They get 6 weeks time. As temperatures in Delhi keep rising, viewers, it's also time that the judges get time to relax. Thank you. We'll be back with another debate tomorrow. Stay on with us.